Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays, hosted by someone's favorite film buff, Nathan. I love movies and I want to share that with you. From old originals to cult classics and foreign favorites, along with straight up drivel, WWW is your place for all things movies. Stick around and we'll leave you with a movie to watch over the weekend with your family or that special someone. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. 88.1 The Burg, your music central. My name is Nathan. Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays. For tonight's show, we have a watch list made up of 3 movies, as it tends to be the sort of trend on the show here. And the 3 movies I'm going to be talking about are very straightforward. They're all in a series. What with Furiosa, Mad Max Saga coming out basically this Friday. I figured it makes sense to talk about the original trilogy, as you would call it, of the Mad Max movies. Tonight we are going to be taking a look at Mad Max from 1979, Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior from 1981, and Mad Max 3, Beyond Thunderdome from 1985. I'm excited to talk about these movies. My only regret is that I can't talk about Mad Max Fury Road tonight, since I usually only talk about 3, and that one's the 4th one. It makes more sense to talk about the first 3 than the first 2 and then like the 4th one. That's subtle foreshadowing because I don't like the 3rd movie, but at any rate, I can easily talk about Fury Road this Saturday on What to Watch Weekends at 9 a.m. Subtle plug. But we're going to talk about the first 3 movies in the series tonight, and I'm very excited to jump into it. So stick around after the break where we'll jump into Mad Max. 88.1 The Burg, your music central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. For our first movie on the watch list tonight, we are going to be talking about Mad Max from 1979, available to watch on Max. Hey, you can watch Mad Max on Max. It's a double max. It's maximum max. It's 2 maxes. I don't know where I'm going with this joke, but I think it's really funny that it's Mad Max on Max. That definitely doesn't repeat the word Max more times than it should have, and I haven't said that word too many times that it's lost all meaning. Not at all in the span of 5 minutes. That's impressive. Not even 5 minutes. 30 seconds. Truly, I set records in the Guinness Book of World Records. At any rate, for those of you who aren't familiar with the original Mad Max, this movie is about Max, a guy by the name of Max, a lone wolf police officer located in a basically dystopian Australia. As his wife and son are killed, he ends up going on a rampage trying to hunt down a motorcycle gang, specifically gunning for the leader of the motorcycle gang, that being Toe Cutter. Yes, that's his actual name. I couldn't make this up if I tried. But you may be asking yourself, okay, I was following you up until, well, most likely his wife and son being killed. Like that part's kind of difficult to track along with. I don't really like that, and that's fair enough. But you may also be asking yourself, what do you mean dystopian Australia? Isn't Mad Max a series set in like a post-apocalypse where everything's gone to like absolute get out nonsense? Everything is ruined. Like, isn't that basically exactly what Mad Max is? And to that, I'd say, this is the first movie. It's a lot more standalone than you'd actually expect from a first movie. It doesn't feel like it's specifically setting up a sequel. It is just a dystopian world. It's not, yes, fuel has run out. But basically the way to describe it is, it's about like 2 to 3 months away from everything going to crap. Like, basically, it's just a dystopia. It's kind of like a halfway between normal society in Australia in the 1970s and then like complete post-apocalypse Australia as portrayed by the 1980s. So it's in that weird sort of middle ground where it's not exactly perfect, but it could get a whole lot worse, and it's very likely to get a whole lot worse. We just haven't gotten there yet. It's just something that I like to emphasize, just because Mad Max has become so sort of synonymous with the post-apocalyptic genre that it's a little easy to forget that the first movie is specifically just dystopian. It's not at that full level quite yet. I also want to emphasize something that's also very easy to forget, which is that the movie's plot doesn't really kick in until about 40 minutes into the movie, and it's about an hour and 20 minutes long. So, like, just keep that in mind. Like it's kind of presented as almost the climax, or like kind of the inciting incident of the story, but 40 minutes in, when his wife and son are basically murdered by the biker gang, right? And you'd think that would kind of happen near the beginning of the movie, and then it'd kind of carry itself through to the end of the story. But somehow they managed to waffle about for like 40 minutes of just car chases. And then, boom, here's Toe Cutter. Again, crazy name, I know, just follow me here. Toe Cutter and his crazy bike gang doing the thing, and then going off, and then Max has to kind of go after them the entire time. It's kind of crazy, and it does definitely take its time. Again, it's really just a bunch of car chases leading up to that sort of pivotal scene when the movie's plot actually starts. I will say, I am a little frustrated that that's the case, because it's always nice when a movie like distracts you from the plot of it. Isn't that great? Isn't that fun? I'm being very sarcastic. It's not fun at all. It's like, I read that this is the story, and it's not even like you haven't gotten to the part that's like highlighted in the Google like plot summary. I mean, as in you are waffling about and doing actually nothing to further any plot or establish any plot. So I'm a little annoyed that we're taking 40 minutes to do essentially nothing in the movie. It's not even like a question of the plot itself. It's really just like, specifically that before it, there is nothing happening. And so why should I be invested to get to the point where stuff actually starts happening that matters to the story? I don't know. It's just a little annoying. But I can at least appreciate the first Mad Max for this. Without it, all the other ones wouldn't have happened. And that's something to keep in mind, especially with the first one. Either it's really good, or it's just kind of worth noting because it inspired everything else that came after it. And it definitely got better over time. They definitely didn't have a formula nailed down. It is, again, kind of standalone, so it's not like they were instantly hyping up a sequel or thinking that it was going to take off as much as it did. And I will say that one of my favorite things about this movie is, unlike a lot of car chases that you can see in big blockbuster movies, something like Jason Bourne, is that the camera tends to shake around. It tends to kind of hide the action or kind of keep it sort of disorienting for the viewer, because that's what it's like to actually be in a car chase. Mad Max takes a different route, and part of it is because it's kind of using Australian production value, since it is an Australian movie, but it's also from 1979, so things were just a bit different. There was a good enough formula mixed in together for them to try something different with their car chases. So at least it's not fully boring watching nothing happen for the first 40 minutes, because they use very wide angles. They show basically a very smooth pan to show each car crash individually. They're not necessarily making it disorienting to look at. They're specifically highlighting it so you can take in all of the basically visceral carnage that you could get from seeing a car crash. But I know it kind of implies that there's like a visual carnage, but what I'm actually trying to say is that the camera's so pulled back that you're really just watching metal pieces fly everywhere. You're not really watching a person die, you're watching a car be destroyed. And again, this feels interesting and unique enough that it kind of keeps your attention. It's not perfect, and I can't give it a whole bunch of excuses just because it inspired a bunch of later movies. It should have been a little better than it currently is. But I will at least give the first Mad Max credit for kicking off the others and being worth watching for at least something that it does right. And again, because it inspired all the other ones, it's almost a weird sense of nostalgia of looking at, okay, they didn't really plan out a series. They just kind of did a dystopian thing, and that transformed into the post-apocalyptic genre that Mad Max has been so closely associated with for the past 20 years. And that sort of close association is much better highlighted in the next movie on the watch list, that being Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior. But we're going to take a quick break before we jump into that movie, so stick around. 88.1 The Burg, your Music Central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays, and for our second movie on the watch list tonight, we are going to be taking a look at Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior from 1981, available to watch on Max. It's Mad Max on Max with Maximum Max. At any rate, to introduce you into the plot of Mad Max 2, after the first movie, the original Mad Max from 1979, Max essentially becomes a wandering nomad in the now post-apocalyptic Australian wasteland. After coming across a group of somewhat friendly sort of survivors, essentially, is the best way to put it, he ends up joining forces with them in order to protect them from a group of marauders led by a character by the name of Humongous. The names of the villains in these movies are wild, and the whole reason I keep coming back. Not the only reason, but like the first movie's name, like the first movie's villain name was Toe Cutter. This one's just Humongous. Like, I hope you understand how incredibly funny that is. It just gets better with Fury Road and Furiosa. Like, come on. Is it Furiosa? Just a great name. They're really good at naming stuff in Mad Max. I can't get enough of it, but I have to get enough of it and move on to talking about Mad Max 2, because in the original trilogy of Mad Max movies, this one is the best one, hands down. There's a very exact reason why. And as I've kind of hinted to with Fury Road being one of my favorite Mad movies of all time, or more so, I like Mad Max Fury Road, a movie that came out a while ago, and I'm excited for Furiosa. But here's the main thing. I think The Road Warrior works because it does what Fury Road would later do. And that is, it makes Mad Max himself not the main character. He's not the main focus of the story. He's more so the audience surrogate who sort of experiences the world around him and allows the audience to sort of have a POV character rather than being the one who goes through the growth. It sounds a bit weird, and it sounds a bit counterintuitive to write a movie like that. You wouldn't expect there to be like a character. You wouldn't expect the main character that we follow throughout the entire thing to be the one that grows and changes the least. But here's the thing about Max specifically, is that I've seen pretty much all of the released Mad Max movies at this point. And I can't tell you whether Mad Max gets his name Mad Max because he's constantly angry or because he's just straight up crazy. Or if it's a mix of both, or it's neither, or they meant something deeper by. I legitimately don't have a good answer, because it's a bit of both in a very weird way. I really don't know what exactly they were thinking when they called him Mad Max. If I had a chance to ask George Miller directly, he probably wouldn't give me a straightforward enough answer, and I'd get annoyed. But I'm just guessing here, because again, I don't know which one it is. So when you have kind of a messy sort of workaround there, it's not just because you can't tell why he's called Mad Max. It's also just because after his wife and child die in the first movie, he doesn't really have anywhere to go. Like I said, he becomes a wandering nomad. He's specifically just kind of on his own, drifting by, not really doing anything important for anybody. You can't really make a character like that go through an arc where he like suddenly realizes that he must save the world, because it's a dystopian, like it's a post-apocalypse. What the bad thing that happened that caused everything to go to crap has already happened, and he can't very well save the ruins of an ancient world specifically. Like, what is he gonna do? He's just one guy in a car who used to be a cop. Like that, there's nothing he can physically do. So with all of those restraints on him, it makes a lot more sense that he's just kind of there going along with stuff and just kind of drifting by. And with the Road Warrior, when he comes into contact with this group of somewhat friendly survivors, his plan is just like, I just want fuel for my car. I'm going to steal it from you. And like, on the one hand, it's like, what are you doing, bro? That's mean. You shouldn't be like this. That's not what a main character in a movie would do. But at the same time, it's what makes Max such an interesting main character in a movie, because he's just gonna steal from somebody. He's got no second thoughts about it. He doesn't grow or change or really think things through. He's just got a car, a gun. He's mad for whatever reason, probably angry at his family dying, but does that make him go crazy? We'll never know the answer fully. Max himself is an interesting sort of creature in the world of Mad Max, but he shouldn't ever be the main driving focus. He should just be the one that the audience follows as he goes through different stories. And the Road Warrior is really good at that because, again, he meets this group of somewhat friendly survivors, and they're the ones with the subtlety and the nuance, and they have to deal with the Marauder led by Humongous. Again, funny name, I know. But it's about them sort of asking and begging Max for help. It's about their sort of coming to terms with the fact that they need help if they want to remain peaceful in this wasteland. They can't specifically just be pacifists and not fight back because people are brutal and mean in a post-apocalyptic world where resources are limited. They need to understand that and kind of have to work through the mental processes of it. And they have to understand that Max can't stay there and help them forever. He's wandering. He doesn't like staying in one place. So again, his character really facilitates other people growing and changing over time in a world like this. He's the reason that the characters in The Road Warrior grow and change over time. They don't actually have to have Max go through an arc when everybody else is going through an arc for him. It's great. It's like, it's about them conquering challenges. It's about them moving on, about them growing. And as I've said, that's exactly what makes Fury Road so good. Because it's not about Max. It is objectively about Furiosa and the wives in Fury Road. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Just keep in mind that a lot of the things that Fury Road did right, in my opinion, were planted directly into The Road Warrior. And I love it for that. I highly recommend The Road Warrior over the other two specifically. Like, if you're going to go see Furiosa this Friday, you should watch Mad Max Fury Road. But you should definitely watch The Road Warrior. It will be well worth your time. But, and here's how we're going to end out the night. I'm not excited for it. I am a little, but I'm not super looking forward to it. I can't say the same for Beyond Thunderdome, the third Mad Max movie. Ooh, I have a lot of things to say about that one. But we have to take a quick break, so stick around to hear my opinions on that one. 88.1 The Burg, your Music Central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our third and final movie on the watch list tonight, we are going to be taking a look at Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome from 1985, available to watch on Max. I've been making the stupid jokes this entire night about how it's Mad Max and it's on the streaming service Max and it's Maximum Max Madness. There, I should have been saying Maximum Madness on Max with Mad Max. That's an entire tongue twister, but it's so much funnier than me just saying Maximum over and over again. Anyway, so to kind of get you guys up to speed on the plot of Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome, after the first two movies, Max ends up in Bartertown, a very evil city run by Tina Turner. I couldn't be bothered looking up the name of the character that she plays. I even had the name there, and I was just like, I'm not going to write it down. It's so much funnier to just say outright that it's Tina Turner running the village. Like, I can't stop laughing even thinking about it. But at any rate, Max gets sort of drafted into Bartertown, where they hold Thunderdome competitions. It's essentially a gladiatorial arena. And then after the first 35 minutes, he ends up getting out of Bartertown and meets a bunch of feral kids in the middle of the desert who think he's God and bring him back so that they can have him help them repair a plane. If you think that's confusing and you think I just lost exactly where I was going with that thought, I didn't. That's exactly what happens in the movie. I couldn't make this up if I tried. I don't like Beyond Thunderdome at all. It's not like awful, but in comparison to what the original Mad Max was and the second Mad Max, The Road Warrior, the things they set up, I would have been so annoyed if this was the last movie in the Mad Max series. This is not, in comparison to the other two, it is abysmal. On its own, it's fine. It's not very good. It's just fine. There are some things that definitely work, but in comparison to the other two, and in comparison even to where the series would later go down the line, it just sticks out like an absolutely sore thumb to me, and I feel very sore about the entire thing as a whole, having to sit through it. The biggest issue with Beyond the Thunderdome, or Beyond Thunderdome, it's not even Beyond the Thunderdome, it's Beyond Thunderdome, is that in comparison to The Road Warrior, where the story is more so about the camp that Max is located in, and he doesn't really go through any character arcs, he's more emphasized as an interesting sort of audience surrogate, the one that we're kind of just following along the entire time as he kind of does his own thing. We kind of have to just track with that. Beyond Thunderdome tries way too hard to make him the main character, to have an arc, to have some importance to the world around him, and some level of a god complex by making these feral children think that he is their sort of wall painting assigned god that is going to save them from the wasteland. Which, stop, that's stupid. But also, like, it just doesn't feel like they are going anywhere with it for about 45 minutes. And like I said, this is after the first 35 minutes. The part at the beginning where they're in Bartertown meeting with Tina Turner, and he goes through the battle in the Thunderdome, does the whole gladiatory arena thing. That part works well enough for me to say, okay, this movie isn't as bad as I could give it credit for. It really is the second half, or more so the second section of it, that drags it down a lot. This kind of highlights a very important problem with Beyond Thunderdome, which is that it feels like two stories mushed together. One of them works well enough for what it's trying to do, but the other one just doesn't fit at all and doesn't follow the formula of not making Max himself the main focus for the audience. He's not supposed to be special. He's not supposed to be incredibly important. He's supposed to be the surrogate. He's supposed to be the one that we follow. He went through all of his growth in the first movie, and you feasibly can't do anything else. You've written yourself into a corner. All you can really do is watch him do stuff and kind of go about it in his own way. Again, they later fixed it with Fury Road and kind of came up with different ideas, but it's just so difficult to make him a character that has growth and depth and nuance to him when he's just a crazy loner, honestly, in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. How do you make that an in-depth character? You really don't. And they try so hard to make it that way. They try so hard to make that important and something you should care about with these weird feral children. I keep saying it. I keep saying that it's feral children. That's exactly what they are. That makes it 10 times weirder. If it had just been normal people, it would have just been cringe-inducing and difficult to watch in the first place, because it's just like the writing has definitely taken a dip. You're definitely not trying as hard as you were with the Road Warrior to make this an interesting character in terms of how uninvolved he is in the story. Him not being involved is what makes Max interesting. And you're basically throwing that all out the window by making him more important to the story. But most egregiously, you're making him important to a bunch of kids. That is weird. That is objectively weird, and they should have stopped right there. But they didn't. They made the entire rest of the movie about that specific plot line, and it drove me crazy while watching this movie. Because again, on its own, it was probably just fine. In comparison to the other two, it is awful. It is awful for that reason, for that entire second plot line. It just feels mushed in there and thrown. I could go off on this forever, and I already have. But I think there's something to be said for the sporadic sort of nature of the movies. Because keep this in mind. The first Mad Max is from 1979. The Road Warrior is from 1981. That means that there's about a 2-year gap. Then this one came out in 1985. They spent about 4 years on it. And, or more so, it was 4 years before the next one. And so I think what possibly could have happened is that over the course of that time, they couldn't figure out which story to go with. And it kind of caused a bunch of production issues. I'm just kind of spitballing and guessing here. What I do know is that many years after the fact, in about 2016, they released Fury Road that had been in production for the last 25 years leading up to its release. So it's just kind of an educated guess, but I have at least a partial amount of evidence to possibly back it up. And somehow Fury Road came out the other end, an absolute masterpiece, and this one just didn't. Maybe they needed more time. Maybe more time was exactly the wrong move. I can only speculate, but what I can't speculate about is that in comparison to all the other movies, Beyond Thunderdome is one you can kind of just skip and you're not missing too much. Maybe you'll miss an occasional reference to the Thunderdome, but it's a dome. What more do you need? It's just a dome in the middle of the desert. Okay, I'm going to stop now. Thank you all for listening in to What to Watch Wednesdays. I know I get a bit carried away when I get angry about something, but I do care about these movies. I really like them. The first one, for all its faults, I still think is worth watching. The second one is really good. This one drops the ball pretty hard, but then Fury Road comes back and picks up that ball, bounces it about a couple more times, and then scores an absolute slam dunk from across the court. And then Furiosa, which is coming out this Friday, I hope will definitely pick up the ball and throw it into the other basket on the other end of the court, which would technically mean that they're scoring for the other team, but it doesn't really matter because this analogy's gone off the rails. At any rate, if you do want to hear my opinions on Fury Road and Furiosa, I will be running What to Watch Weekends this Saturday at 9 a.m. So please make sure to tune into that if you are interested in that. I may also talk about the Mad Max video game a little bit. And then in terms of What to Watch Wednesdays, please follow What to Watch Wednesdays at What to Watch Wednesdays on Instagram. All one word, no caps, no spaces. Thank you all for listening in. My name is Nathan. I will be back here on What to Watch Wednesdays next Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. So I hope to see you all there. Bye-bye.